Check, check, check.
Check. Yeah, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Perfect. How are you doing?
Well, how about yourself?
Yeah, good. Yeah, did the stream go well? I couldn't watch it actually.
Oh, no big deal.
No big. Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. So let me just, because I just have to test with OBS if the recording is working.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that I don't lose like all the data and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll just start the recording. Can you maybe like just say something for the test?
I really enjoy small cats. Small cats are very fluffy and adorable, and they're fun to play with.
All right. Okay, let's check this. And I think, yes, it works. Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, so yeah, again, I mean, as I said in my messages, thanks for accepting to participate in this interview. It really helps. As I mentioned, it's just so it's not going to be published anywhere. It's just like for my master's degree, essentially.
Yeah.
It's for a research project I'm working on in collaboration with a video game studio called Behavior Interactive. So I don't know if you've heard of these guys.
And they do DBD, right?
Yeah,
Dead by Daylight?
They're developers who make DBD. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just to let you know that basically some of the results are going to be accessible to them.
Okay.
Basically the interview is going to be approximately an hour long.
Okay.
Approximately. So if we go above an hour, you can just like tell me if you need to go, or otherwise we can keep talking. I actually have quite a lot of questions to go over, so it's really up to you. And it's not mandatory for you to answer all of the questions. So if there's like a question you don't like or you can't answer, just tell me and we'll move on.
Okay.
It's really no big deal. Just to tell you, there's 4 sections to the interview. So the first one is going to be about yourself as a streamer and about streaming generally. The second one is going to be about your community. And the third one is going to be about your relationship to video games generally. And the last one I'll explain to you once we get to it actually.
Okay.
So did you have any questions before we begin?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect. So I'll start the recording right now.
Okay.
There we go. All right, so first question is a very generic question. It's just about yourself. So could you please tell me a few things about your history as a streamer? So how long have you been streaming for? How did you get into streaming? Stuff like that.
So basically, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I originally got into streaming when I started watching PUBG on the Mixer application that was built into the Xbox. A couple of my friends had already, broadcasted to essentially just share, showcase what was going on. And then they had a feature, or a featurette, I should say, called Hype Zone. And you could watch people who were close to victory, or really close to victory, and get that intense moment. And as soon as their victory would end, it would move on to the next streamer who was also close to victory. And at the time, there were 1,000, 1,200 some odd people at peak times watching Hype Zone. A lot of people watching. And so it was just a really, really vibrant experience. And, at the moment, I remember seeing some of the streamers that were out there, and it was just really negative. It was always like, yeah, get wrecked, you suck, like F your mom. It was just really negative energy. And there was a couple in there every once in a while that you'd find that were just, rather they'd be really casual or really straight, forward about it. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is fun. And so I got to thinking that, we needed more positive people out there, more reinforcing people out there, communities out there that would allow people to feel safe no matter what the circumstances were, that it wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about whatever. It's just about having a good time with friends, with family, with community, with whatever. And so I sat there and thought to myself, like, wow, I could really do this. Like, I'm already in sales. So that was my background, was I was in retail sales, which I'm now no longer due to COVID. But I didn't mind getting in front of people. That was never a problem for me.
Okay, I see. Oh, so right now, actually, you're a full-time streamer because of COVID?
Currently, yes.
Yes. So before that, before the whole pandemic and all that, you weren't actually a full-time streamer?
Correct. I was averaging about 10 to 15 hours, sometimes more, accordingly with time off of work and whatever. But they were completely randomized hours at work. So it'd be like, from one week to the next, I didn't know what I was working the following week. So I couldn't make a schedule, which is almost imperative to streaming. So that way people know when to come back. And that was one of the most painful pieces to me, is that I couldn't grow, I couldn't succeed, I couldn't do anything. And it was something that I knew that was really, really holding me back. Mentally, from being in streaming, and just growth potential being in streaming. And since I've had a schedule, we've seen a massive influx. And obviously, I mean, I can't deny the fact that some of that's from people being stuck inside the house, which is an unfortunate circumstance. It's a double-edged sword, like I'm stuck streaming. Because that's all I can do. I shouldn't be going out and then, spreading disease, spreading death, because that would also go against my message. It would go against my moral code, my personal beliefs, everything. So
I see.
why not do what I love? Why not help people forget about the craziness that's out there?
I see. So now that you're a full-time streamer, are you planning on maybe staying like full-time even after the pandemic, or are you going to go back to work, for instance?
I mean, there's definitely a possibility that I would end up staying in full-time streaming, but obviously I have to be able to support myself, support a family, support, my loved ones. And that's something that I would weigh. And I would say that it's not enough to pay for that, to pay for all my bills, to pay for everything right now. If I were to be partnered with the platform, and then the donations that I'm already receiving, partnerships with companies to showcase independent content from developers, whatever it may be, I would be close. I would be real close. But I can't rely on subs. Like, it could be that the next moment that no one can afford to do it because COVID goes into full circulation again, and they just can't afford to pay for that. So it's something else I need to think about in the back of my mind when I'm considering that as a topic. But it's possible. It's definitely possible.
All right. And you talked about how you started streaming. So when was that actually? How long ago was it?
It's a little shy of 2 years, like about a month from now is when I really got into it. I had hit the button, like going live here and there, just occasionally. And then I got a Hype Zone, visit, like where 300 or 400 people are in my stream, and I'm freaking out, because like I've never had that much interaction in my life. In a stream. It's always been like one friend who's watching me, one friend who's there, and all of a sudden like chat's blowing up, and I had really good positive reactions that were always like, hey, this is a really great time, you're such a nice person, etc., etc., etc. I'm like, this is why I wanted to be here. This is exactly why I wanted to do this. I see. To further that process of there is a place that you can go to have a good experience or a positive experience.
I see. So actually, that's an interesting point to me, because you have, in normal times, you actually have a job on the side and you do streaming like as a plus. So I guess you probably have very long weeks, because I guess you have a full-time job and then 15 hours of stream per week. So what justifies the efforts that you put into streaming? So what motivates you to keep streaming? What do you like about it?
Just being there for people. I mean, honestly, I've always loved playing video games. So that's on the side, that it just happens to be that I'm playing video games. But being able to be just over the top obnoxious about how I'm interacting, how I'm entertaining, how I'm being there for my community, how I'm existing there for my community and building upon those relationships, I can allow for an individual who enters into the stream, no matter what race, culture, background, ethnicity, doesn't matter, a safe haven to feel themselves, to be okay with themselves, and to find relationships and friendships in other people that exist in the same community, and make a difference in someone's day. Like, you never know when someone needs just a little brightening in their life. And there have been so many times where we've been sitting there and gone to raid someone, or someone's come in and said, I've had X happen or Y happen, and I can't take it. It's been beating me up, and I'm glad that I can come here and have a place that I can go to feel fantastic, to feel like my day's just getting better, and help me forget about the stuff that's been keeping me down. And I know that I can go on with, a family like this.
Okay, I see. So it's really then, so then it's really like giving people a sense of community, I guess, giving them a sense of belonging. So actually, how do you do this? How do you make people feel welcome in your streams, and how do you make them enjoy the stream? essentially?
I think it's challenging to a degree because that varies from person to person, right? People want to watch someone who's similar to them in a fashion. And what I mean by that is like people are looking for rather a positive energy source because they've had that exist in their life. Maybe they've lost someone who's existed in their life who's been that. Like I don't have a whole lot of really, really negative people who end up in my stream. They don't. And we get them every once in a while, but I don't tend to hold their attention. And it's just because of who I am. It's because of what I'm bringing. But I think that, you know, I can create that experience by just being unendingly positive, sickeningly positive, as my best friend puts it, to the point where people know that that's the directive. People know that that's the objective of the community. And by greeting people, by being engaging with people and doing what you can to be remembering of who they are, where they come from, what their background is, what their struggles are, what they're dealing with today, tomorrow, yesterday, next week, it doesn't matter. Doing what you can to remember that as best as you can. But then also condoning and fostering that same level of attention to the rest of the members of the community so that they can interact with each other. Because those are building bonds with not only one person, but multiple people. And theoretically, the more bonds that you have with a group of people, the less likely you are to want to not be around them.
Yeah, okay, I see. So to you, like the fact that people actually create relationships with one another is actually what keeps them sort of coming regularly to the stream then?
I believe that's wholly accurate. There are some people, obviously, that are there for gameplay. They're there because they want to drop in and play a game. They don't care about anything else. If I'm not playing X game or Y game or Z game or whatever, they don't show up. They might stop in and say, hey, why aren't you playing this? And the moment that I answer the question, well, I'm just not doing that today, they're gone. They're gone. And that's... You're going to have that no matter what. I pick the biggest streamer in the world, Ninja, Dr. Disrespect, whatever. And yeah, there are a lot of people there that are there for the entertainment. But if Dr. Disrespect or Ninja, you know, if the Doctor's not playing Modern Warfare, if Ninja's not playing Fortnite, you know, you lose some of your market audience. That's just, that's the facts. But I'm okay with that. I think everyone has to ultimately come to terms with that. And there are some people that don't, and I'm sure that they're challenged by that. But you know, mentally, in the process of should I stream, should I not stream, no one's showing up, what do I do? No one likes when I don't play other games, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I think that just, again, creating relationships and creating an environment that makes a person feel like they're okay with who they are and nurturing that and saying it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be whatever, as long as you love yourself. That's the first step. And we talk about it a lot because there are a lot of people who struggle with that. And we continue to say and go out of our way to put community and people first, because that is the focus. And that's, again, what helps people attach is friendship, bonds, relationships.
I see. So actually, maybe that's a bit of a complicated question because you're not like in their heads, obviously. But what do you think differentiates the people who watch you for the games you play from the people who watch you whatever game you play? So, because you know, as you said, like some people will start watching, and if you don't play that game, they're gonna leave. Whereas some people will just show up and stay whatever you play. So, what differentiates them to you?
I mean, I would say that's a pretty compound question, again, because that can vary from user to user. As you've stated, it's pretty complex. I think that there are people who are there to be interested in gameplay, and I've made this point on my stream that there's pretty much two types of streamers, and it may or may not be accurate. It's just my opinion that there's two types of streamers. That there's a streamer who's there for the content, that they're there to play a game, that they don't interact as much with the community, and then there's a person who's there for the community, and gameplay comes second nature. I believe personally that Mixer is a location that you find a lot of the latter, a lot of people who are interested in community and less so gameplay, versus the reverse. Twitch has a lot more, I don't care about necessarily chatting as much or whatever, and you still have people that are interested in that's their foundation, that's their growth piece, that's what they are looking for, seeking, and that's why I believe that you see just chatting blowing up in all platforms. But gameplay's, you know, it depends on the user. But again, you are attracting a specific type of audience based off of what you're doing. So like, I think that there are people that come in and they're looking for top tier gameplay. A person dies quickly, whatever. They might not be interested. They're looking for tips that help them get better. That's probably a person who's a little bit more interested in gameplay. And occasionally we get a user who says that, like, I came for this game, I came for this experience, and I ended up staying or wanting to stay after I heard who you guys are and what you guys are doing. Like, I only came to watch you blast on people, and now I'm here because I love it. But it happens. I think that a lot of the people who end up joining the stream and then immediately leaving are probably in that first category, and the people who are in the second category are the people who want to lurk. They want to sit there for a minute. They don't want to necessarily say anything, but they want to see that level of engagement. If I'm accepted, do I feel like I'm going to be accepted when I start talking? You know, that kind of a thing.
I see. And actually, okay, so I have two questions from what you've said. Well, the first one is when you say feeling accepted, how do you make people feel accepted in your stream?
So that's again, I would say a challenging point, just because you don't know what the struggles are. I don't know what they're thinking, as you've said. I have no idea what's going on in their head, and there's no way for me to ever prove that 100% correct. If someone says that, you know, their dog passed away today, I don't know if that's true. They could just be looking for attention. I don't know. But it is important for me to not assume that they're lying about it, and make it an important value and state that, like, hey, we need to pick up someone because they're feeling down, because they've lost, because they're hurting, and we need to make that important, because the struggle of an individual, a human, is more important than whatever we're doing on a game screen. So by creating that acceptance, I would say it doesn't, I don't know, like it's I guess the sense of engaging as quickly as possible probably creates a level of inclusion, and then inclusion can be broadened, or what our view of inclusion is can be broadened after we start interacting with an individual, if that makes sense.
I see. And actually, the second question I have is, so I've interviewed a bunch of streamers for this research project who were all from Twitch. You're actually the first streamer from Mixer I'm interviewing, so I'm pretty interested about that point. First, you mentioned that Mixer is more like community driven, whereas Twitch is more maybe gameplay driven. So why do you think Mixer attracts such a different type of community and different type of streamer?
So this is another complex piece, and I again, just all conjecture. I would go as far as back to say that, you know, Twitch was founded a really, really long time ago, that it started as a platform when gaming as a whole basis was a little bit more of a closet entertainment piece. It wasn't as widely accepted. Now you have people making fortunes upon fortunes of money after all these video games have blown up, and now we start to see people streaming to make money. It's becoming more of a widely accepted trend. It's a household name now, you know? Whereas 10 years ago, it was like, oh, all you do is play video games? Weird. You know, it was a far lower audience base. Like, it was, you had the hardcore, like people who just played to play video games, enjoyed video games. They played a lot, they played regularly, and then more of the casual. And there was a very clear divide. And now you have this broadened horizon. And so how that, I believe, impacts the industry is that Twitch started out when that was a closet industry, when no one was really gaming unless you were a quote unquote nerd or a geek or whatever. And so you fostered those individuals to be okay, to build audience, to build stance, to build, I don't know, power or clout or whatever you want to call it, on those platforms when they were growing, when they were, excuse me.
No problem.
And when they were, wow.
That's totally fine.
Wow.
Get somewhere if you need. You've been talking a lot through the stream and all that. So.
Yeah, no, I must be. I mean, I usually hydrate myself pretty well, but apparently it must be my allergies.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So
no problem.
I think thank you. I think the growth piece that you have from the Twitch platform is that you have a bunch of individuals who've taken the time to build up who they are, where they are, their personalities, and they know what's accepted. And they were okay with being who they were back then, and they've continued to be that now. And now that the industry is starting to see a broadening of who ending up on Twitch, those people still have that status, as it were, over there, and that's become the accepted norm. You know, the people spamming emotes and lulls and you know, I would say more trollish behavior was a little bit more of the behavior that you saw from individuals who were in the industry 10 years ago than you see today. But the problem is that in my opinion, that's affecting the way gamers are viewed. That's affecting the behaviors of gamers as they're growing up. So like, let's say, for example, a teenager who's just trying to start to come to terms with himself is learning all these behaviors is from a role model, from an individual, a mentor, whomever they're seeing, and then they're mimicking, emulating these experiences, these interactions, these, you know, mannerisms. And it's creating more and more and more, perpetuating more of that same behavior. And so I think Mixer being a newer entity, it has started at a point where, you know, Fortnite, it was what, 2016 pretty much when Beam really was starting to come into fruition. Fortnite was already really existent to a degree in a beta stance. PUBG was around. All these other streaming platforms were already starting to explode. And then, you know, Mixer comes on, or I should say Beam. Beam comes on, and then, you know, Microsoft buys out Beam and turns it into Mixer, and then makes it into the experience that it is. But it was already people who were seeking community, people who were looking for people to play with, people who were trying to broaden their horizons. And while we did have some of that trollish behavior, it was just a more community-driven platform. And it's very evident from how people interact in chat versus what you see when you go over to Twitch.
I see.
And I get that experience because I actually restream. So I stream to Twitch and to Mixer at the same time, as well as a couple other platforms. But we get a lot of that coming in, a lot of that troll behavior coming in, and we have to protect or prevent a lot of that issue getting to the Mixer community because I'm more protective of my community. So I have to separate or segregate that chatter in order to be more watchful to the people that exist out there, because I can't have someone just, you know, saying hateful things and ruining someone's day. That's everything that I strive to create, is a better day. Why would I want to let that into my environment?
Nice. Well, actually, so you've mentioned the role models when it comes to like viewers. Do you have like a streamer who inspired you as you grew your community, or a streamer that you used to watch that kind of guided or inspired the way you stream right now?
Oddly enough, no. And I know it's going to sound full of myself. I know that's, no matter what, that's how it's always going to come across. Because I know a lot of people, like, you know, we've interviewed people and they say, oh, you know, I started by watching this person or that person or this person or that person. But it was one of the reasons why I got into the business in the first place, why I got into streaming in the first place, is because I continued to see top streamers who were only offensive, only aggressive. And maybe if I had done more searching, more researching, then I would have ended up seeing that. I've worked with a group called the Crusade Group who kind of took me under their wing and helped me to further my mentality of being a positive force. They would say, or I would say, that they were really the only influential individuals, moral support or moral compass, that gave me a little bit more guidance to the direction that I should be, but furthered who I already was and what I was already attempting to do. They just gave me the tools to capitalize on my talents.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that some of the top streamers were actually very offensive in the way they do their content, the way they talk to people. It made me instantly think of, for instance, Dr. Disrespect, obviously, maybe Tyler One, people like that. So why do you believe that these streamers are so successful despite the fact that they're actually very offensive? In terms of, because they do get like dozens of thousands of viewers. So right. Why do you think people watch them?
So, I mean, we always break down plays into two categories: drama and comedy. At the end of the day, comedy was always the happy story and drama was always the sad story. And admittedly, drama tends to pull more of a crowd than comedy a lot of times.
I see.
and it's a sad piece, but it's the human aspect of us. I mean, we're drawn to the car wreck. You know, it's the crane neck, as as we like to call it. When a person sees a car accident, everyone's on fire and they're burning, and everyone has to turn their head and look. I don't know what it is in human psychology or human nature that drives us to want to see that, to want to watch that, to want to be around that, but it works. It happens.
Okay.
So I believe it's successful. I understand that it's going to continue to be successful, and to go against that is technically to go against human nature in some aspects. However, we also look for positive experiences, and I think that's where some of us end up so divided, is that we have some people who are positive and some people who just tend to be drawn towards the negative, and I tend to be on the prefix.
Nice. Another question I have for you, since we talked about successful streamers, according to you, what does it take to become a successful streamer? More specifically, what skills should you develop if you want to become successful as a streamer?
I would say it's a cliche answer, but being yourself, tenoske, so know thyself. Love yourself, be okay with being you. I think the largest problem is that people attempt to be someone else, and not that it hasn't worked for other people. I mean, again, to quote, you could look at Dr. Disrespect, who literally dons an entirely different character to create an experience because it's functional and it works. But even back in the day, he wasn't nearly as, I would say, high energy as he is now. Regardless, I think that being yourself is one of the first steps, because people tend to see through that fairly easily, it seems. They see facades, they see fake, and if not, at some point it tends to come out. I mean, you've heard train wrecks, horror stories of people who pretended to be crippled or whatever, and then, go against that entire thing at a random instance because something scares them or whatever, and now their entire career is just in shambles because they've been putting on a fake show for this entire time, and it all just fell apart. And I think that, at some point it comes back to bite you. And I don't just mean in the complete, train wreck negative. I just mean that at some point your mental health comes back to bite you. You pretending to be something you're not. I mean, what was it? Pokimane just did an interview the other day with a world-renowned doctor and started crying on stream. That was about a month ago. Started crying on stream just because, she's coming to terms with the fact that she started doing something so much just to stay aligned with viewership, to stay aligned with growth, to stay aligned with that motto, that motif, that actually ended up making her question who she really, really is anymore. And it's changed her entire philosophy, her behavioral pattern. And so I think, me personally, coming into this, I find myself as successful as I do because I was okay with being myself to start with. But I think that that's the foundation. I don't know what other great tools there would be to answer your question. On what it takes to be a great or successful streamer. Sometimes it's luck of the draw, playing the right game, getting a host from someone, just the right level of exposure. However, I think that when a person enters into it, they need to understand that networking, being present in other people's communities, and knowing who you are and being okay with that are the two most successful pieces. The third, which is mildly necessary or pretty necessary, would be making sure that you have the right tools to start, because if you do happen to be noticed, then you have an excellent look. Someone knows that you are prepared for this. Someone knows that you have the right incentives in line, in place, to make sure that that can occur.
All right, I see. And you mentioned, so now I kind of want to talk about your community a little bit. So you've mentioned at the very beginning that you used to have one viewer who was a close friend of yours who watched you, and then you had suddenly you had 400 viewers on Mixer. So could you maybe describe to me what were the big steps of the building of your community? So how in 2 years you got from essentially one viewer to approximately 100 viewers? So concurrent viewers. So how did it happen, basically?
I mean, like I said, some of it's luck of the draw. I mean, I remember I was playing a game once. It had just come out on Xbox, and someone may or may not be familiar with just calling it Warface. So I remember I started coming up with a plan when I was, again, still only like 1 viewer, 2 viewers. I started playing Xbox Live Gold games on their launch day. So Xbox Live comes out with free games with Gold, the Xbox Live membership, every pretty much 15 days. And so I would try and play one of those games on release, new games, because it got me enough of an attention that I might see 1 or 2 new people here or there. And my idea was, if I could get them in the door, I might be able to keep them. Because my personality, my community, my involvement, my sense, my direction, that's what's going to sell them. But I got to get them there. So if I'm working on constantly refreshed new content, then naturally I'm going to see someone who's going to want to try and look at the game, find out whether or not it's even worth downloading, and then play it. But if I can keep them there long enough to hold a conversation because they're looking for the content to see whether or not it's good, and not me, the content, the game, then I might be able to win them over. So then it's slowly between PUBG and getting Hype Zone, and then playing those Xbox Live Gold games. I found Warface. Warface was a brand new Xbox game, and I remember going from 2 viewers to 15 in one day, which was a huge jump. Like, I had 15 the whole day. Unheard of. I'd only been in the streaming industry for like 2-3 months, and so I was just shocked. Like, who am I? What am I doing? What do I need to start accomplishing? And so when we started looking at that, my best friend and I were talking about it, like, okay, so maybe this needs to be a regular schedule, et cetera, look at new releases, et cetera. And that's why you see a lot of content creators all playing the same game on launch, is because it's new. If you're the first person playing it before everyone else is, people are going to want to go and look at you because you're the first person there. And so you're guaranteeing that exposure. Nice. And so Warface did that for me, and it helped me start doing that and then build and build and build. And again, just fostering the relationship of one person, asking them how they are, asking them, hey, it's good to see you. How's your family doing? How's your dog? I'm sorry to hear about your cat that died. Like, are you planning on getting another one, et cetera, et cetera. And I think... I think that growth, that looking from 1 to 100 viewers, it was just about me focusing on the people. And I still don't think that we're at a 100 as a solid average. Every once in a while we'll spike to 300 or whatever, but it's just luck of the draw. People host us, people want to host us, whatever it may be. And we're blessed. Like, we build relationships, and those people want to give back. Sometimes we build a relationship with a streamer, we don't know it, and then they're like, hey, I'm a streamer, I'm actually pretty big, and I believe in your message, I believe in what you're doing, and I want to help you out, which goes a long way.
So you said that you don't have like a solid, like a stable average of viewers yet. What would your goal be in terms of the size of your community? So would you aspire to attract thousands of viewers and become like a really, really, really big streamer?
My aspiration is to make a difference, and always is to make a difference to the community, to people's everyday lives. If that means that we end up reaching more people and that gives us the opportunity to make a larger difference, then absolutely, I would love that. If for whatever reason it would cause me to want to sacrifice my moral character or my decision, my moral fiber, in order to achieve a goal of a larger number, I am no longer interested.
Nice.
I care about people first and foremost, and I will continue to care about people. I'm sure it sounds like a canned answer, but I really do. Like, I'll stream to one person if it's making one person smile continuously over and over and over again. And that's not to say that you don't feel like you're not accomplishing a goal. If for whatever reason I was averaging 60 or 100 or 200 or 5,000, doesn't matter, pick a number, and all of a sudden that number drops in half, I'm going to question what I'm doing. I mean, that's the business aspect of it. I was doing X and it is no longer working. How do I adapt? And it's just because myself, I'm a motivated individual to want to succeed. But I want to succeed at making people have a better day, have a happy day.
I see.
So I need to care about, to a degree, I need to care about my viewership. But as long as we're making a difference for people, I'm good.
Okay. So ultimately, the goal is really to brighten people's days and stuff like that. Okay, I see. So we talked a little bit about your core viewers. So those viewers who basically stick around whatever games you play. Could you maybe talk to me a little bit about your relationship with these viewers? So do you know some of them like in real life, or is it like purely virtual?
I only know a select few of them in real life. I keep myself pretty secluded for security purposes, for the safety of my family, the people around me. I'm trying to do what I can to make sure that I can keep them safe, because their safety is just as important as my own personal safety. And I don't think, I mean, it would be crazy of me to think that I'm to the point where, you know, I would be under duress or in danger. But it's not like people don't make enemies. I mean, it goes without saying that I've had people come into my stream that I just, you know, after talking with them, after seeing what they produce, after seeing their content, I don't like them. And if they ask me about it, I don't mind being vocal about it, because I'm pretty open book. So like if I say like, I don't like what you're doing, I don't like what you're doing for the platform, and I think it's a horrible thing, like you're saying horrible things, you're continuing to do horrible things, and it's hurting people. And like, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing the repercussions of that. Yeah, I'm going to stand up against it. And again, for the same reason that I want to protect not only the community, but protect the lives of people that exist out there. I would say that I have a couple people that know me in real life, just because I've told them about the stream and they've come, they're willing to watch. But most of these people are virtual relationships. And I would say that I can keep up with them to a degree. But I can never, as you said, truly know what's going on in their mind. I just have to trust that what they're telling me is true.
Okay.
And there are some times that you can obviously see that, okay, there's no way that that's factual. You know, you can go and do the research yourself and you're like, okay, that's just not factual. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind necessarily having a more true relationship, or more, I would say, physical, in the sense that they actually have met me, seen me, known me. I've gone to conventions, you know, like where you meet other streamers, where people meet you. And there are a couple people who have met me in person accordingly, streamers who have met me in person accordingly. And that's okay. But I mean, I try and keep myself private enough to protect the other people around me, because I care just as much about my family as I do my community, and everyone deserves to be safe.
Nice. And you talked a little bit about so, you know, people you dislike in your community, and basically like toxicity. So how do you manage that in your community? So I watched actually one of your streams. I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, where you actually had to ban 2 guys because of hateful comments they made. I think in the chat. So
Right.
how do you basically, yeah, how do you manage toxicity?
I mean, if it's projected or directed, towards me, I don't like, bring it on. As long as it's not hateful, like any hate speech, I just have to run a zero tolerance policy. There's no questions. If it's from a moderator, like, I'll get rid of them right then and there. I don't care, because I will not stand for it. Basically, my rule set is you should be acting out of love and respect for another person, and that's just not a loving, respectful thing to do for another human being. And especially for the future of our entire human race, like that's not a good trait, or a good characteristic, a good behavior to advocate. And so I always take a stand against that as a absolutely not. In terms of like people coming in, if they want to call me stupid or names or whatever, like I'll run along with them. I'll be like, yeah, I'm the worst player in the world. I'm absolutely garbage. I'm a total bot, and I can't aim to save my life. Like, but why don't you stop on in and have fun with me? Because like, maybe you can teach me how to play. You're obviously a better player. And so sometimes I've won people over, trolls over, by just agreeing with them or saying that's the best you've got. And it's, I don't know, to some degree, it helps manage toxicity, because it keeps the people on your side. You know, I think what ends up happening is like, you've got everyone's best interest at a core, is that you'll let someone attack you because I know I can handle it. I've got thick skin, but don't touch any of my friends, or I swear to God, I'm coming after you. It's just, I care too much about this community to let them be hurt and harmed. And so I give people a warning. I'll say, that's just not how we talk. Here's how. Here's why that's important. Here's why we cannot say that to other people. And this is why that's used. And that's what created that circumstance, why people want to say negative things like that and hurtful things like that. And that's why you shouldn't in the future. So just educating them. Nice. I think that's important as well.
All right. So I guess toxicity was probably the challenge that you had to face as you built your community. But what were actually some of the biggest challenges that complicated maybe the way you built your community? Did you face any like major challenges during the past 2 years?
I wouldn't say that I've necessarily faced any major challenges. There's always been setbacks like, what game do I play? Do I really want to continue? Is this worth it? Am I making a difference? But I would say the normal, internal struggles, the conflicts that we deal with as human beings, to question our own behaviors, to question our own aspirations, to just the self-doubt that you deal with. And I think that there have definitely been moments where I haven't wanted to continue. Go ahead.
I don't know. So could you maybe just tell me a bit about these moments you're talking about? Yeah.
I mean, so like even in March, I had recently applied to be a partner on Mixer, and I got denied because I wasn't streaming often enough. They said that the hours viewed over a 4-week average was too low, which basically means that my viewership might have been high enough, but the amount of time that they actually spent watching that content didn't match up to what should be for the amount of people that I had. So theoretically, let's say I had 50 people watching the stream, but I only streamed 1 hour per day, 3 days a week, for a total of 3 hours on 12 a month, right? Like that's too low. So even if you have 300 people watching, like there's still not enough hours watched because your viewership and exposure is not consistent enough. And at that point, I was working, right to the leading up of at least where I was, an outbreak of COVID. And it created a problem where I had to spend a lot of time working. People were starting to call off. People were feeling unsafe, et cetera, et cetera. And it just created an instance where I was essentially working 44 hours a week, 55 with travel time, because my commute was an hour one way. And I didn't have a consistent schedule. When I was home, I wanted to spend time with my girlfriend. I still wanted to be able to stream. So I was streaming, I don't know, 8 hours a week, if that. And so leading up to that point, I felt like I wasn't doing it. I questioned what I was doing, what I was capable of, whose life I was actually affecting. Is this more for me? Is this more for the community? Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Because I was getting denied in the wake of seeing other people who had less concurrent viewers with more stream time, like, 8 people, really, really low numbers, get partnered. And to me, it was just mind-bogglingly shocking. So it was like, if I can go to another stream and watch them saying and doing nothing for 30 minutes with any of the members of community and no one's saying a word, and I'm sitting here interacting with everything, why would I think that would be right then? So I must be doing something wrong. So naturally, you lead yourself to doubt. You lead yourself to question whether or not it's the right incentive, the right motivation. But I decided to plug on. I decided to keep going, and we just had a flood, especially leading through COVID. Like, oh, I just lost my family member. I lost my uncle, and I know that I can come here to the vault and just have a good day and just forget, just for a minute, just get some sanity. And it's really, really driven that ideal home to me that, we are a community and we are a band of people that really do come together well, very, very loyal to each other, very loving to each other. And it's continued to be something that sits in the back of my mind. And I'm sure I'll always have something that just itches back there that makes me question whether or not we're heading the right direction. But it's slowly starting to get quieter.
All right. You talked a bit about going to streams where the streamers don't interact at all with the viewers. So interaction to you is really something important when it comes to streaming, right?
To me, it's a necessity.
Okay, why is it necessary for you to interact with viewers? What does it add to the stream?
I think that adds personality to it, because it creates transparency. People can see when you're vulnerable. People can see when other people are vulnerable, and it puts us on the same playing field. It puts us on the same that level of relationship, because it's not just in a term of visualization. I would say that it's like being at a party and everyone's actually there. You know, you're interacting with them, you're seeing them, you're going around to the rest of the party to make sure that you know who showed up. And so if I were just sitting there, it'd be like me going to a party, sitting in a corner and not talking to anyone and just minding my own business and sitting a drink while everyone's around doing their own thing. So I don't think it's conducive to our future, because I think that when you're sitting there and capable of having a discussion, when you're capable of talking to each other and being transparent, being real with other people, that's when we stand to gain the most as individuals, is in the process of growth and in the process of accountability. I mean, we have to be able to be accepting and loving of an opinion, but still be able to talk about it in the sense of potential for maybe even being wrong. And so I think that us having very, very real relationships and me being able to, you know, have a conversation with an individual who's in chat and making that the focus of my attention makes me say that people are important, because they are important to me. But if I say that people are important and that my community is important, but I'm focusing and saying that I'm focusing, showing that I'm focusing on a game, inherently, indirectly, I am stating that they are not as important as I state. That community growth of my stream, growth of our community is technically not my priority. And so at that point, it becomes a fallacy. It's logically not stable.
I see. So actually, I saw. So you talked about focusing your attention on interactions versus like focusing it on the game. But I saw that sometimes you also play games with your viewers, so you actually like involve them in gameplay like that. So why do you play with your viewers actually?
To learn about them. I mean, just to again further those relationships, and I'm sure it'll probably be something that we kind of in a way keep coming back to, but I tend to try and play games more directly that are cooperative or influenced by cooperative experiences. Like, let's say, for example, Apex, I can play with people. Jackbox, I can play with people. Now, I play God of War on Friday, and have been continually playing God of War on Fridays, and that's a single player game. No one can really interact with that. No one can play along with me there. But Paladins and everything else, people can play. I will always, if it's a multiplayer game, do my best to make sure that I can play along with people, because that again further fosters what my incentive, my drive, my motivation to stream in the first place is, and just drives that home, that I do care about my audience. I do want to learn about it, and I'm serious. It's not just me saying that. I'll back it up. And I don't care how big I get, I will do what I can to back that up. Now, there are precautions that I still have to take. Like, I can't have a person coming in and just starting to spout off hate speech. I can't. I just can't do that. And the bigger I get, the more I'm going to have to be concerned about that. So I'm going to need a buffer. At one point, I'll have to have someone run that buffer gate for me. But as of right now, and continually, always, I will do everything to make sure that I have open lobbies for the community, open opportunities for the community, because I state my doors open. It should be such.
I see. So actually now, since we're talking about like the games themselves, I kind of want to talk about like your relationship to video games. So especially like the video games you stream. So what makes a game streamable to you? So you've mentioned that interactivity is important. Being able to play with your viewers is important. But what does it take for a game to be streamable?
I think any game is streamable as long as the community can make it enjoyable, engaging, and fun. So at the same time, like God of War, it is not an engaging experience for multiple people to be able to play, but I can make it an engaging experience by making it fun and entertaining. If people feel like they can attach themselves to the experience by, you know, coming back to familiar events, like, I mean, just out of humor, but the point of contention around the title is that you spend a lot of time punching people. So I've grown accustomed to calling it fisting. Out of a joke, and people seem to just take it and run with it. It's a meme, it's a gag, it's a joke, you know, that they just enjoy, and they know that they can come back and have a laugh about it. But it also offers that familiarity of the event that, hey, if I'm having a bad day, I know I can probably go in there and drop one word and it's going to turn into a string of a laugh, you know?
Okay.
And so you can still build interaction. You can still build games in general into an experience for your community to enjoy, regardless of whether or not they can actually involve themselves and play along with you. But I've been playing games forever. I mean, I grew up, and I remember my first gaming experience on a Tandy 386 when I was 3 years old, playing King's Quest and Thexter, and I remember Prodigy Online before AOL was a thing. Like, I remember connecting to library networks to try and talk with people. It was just, that was my life. It was always games, because I felt like I could separate myself from reality. And I was always taught that a game is never real. There's never anything true about it. That, you know, guys can't be invincible. If they get shot, they're dead. You know, hedgehogs can't run fast. Mario isn't going to live if he eats a mushroom. You know, there were just things that my parents helped to train me to understand that this is fun and life is life. But I believe those worlds are starting to meld together, and accordingly, how we interact with each other, it's starting to meld together as well, and we should start treating it as such. And it's another reason I'm getting into streaming, or got into streaming, is because I see that gap. I see the influence that people have on other people's lives. And if we want to do anything for the future, we need people who are willing to do the opposite of negative. We need balance. We need equality.
Okay, so you actually you said, so basically you could, according to you could stream essentially any kind of game, because ultimately the community is going to make it engaging, right? So maybe, like, are there any games that you would definitely not be willing to stream, and why?
I wouldn't be willing to. So I'll say it up front. I'm not willing to stream Wolfenstein 2, very, very specifically, and it's because they have hate speech. Now, granted, it's under an educational pretense that, quote unquote, the Nazis were using hateful, pejorative, you know, whatever phrases that would insult or harm an individual on the intent and purpose to harm an individual. And it's with the notion that they were, quote unquote, the Nazis. You know, this was the Third Reich, and that was a horrible time period for the world. So while it does have an educational background, it doesn't stop the fact that, oh, if I have some person who isn't educated enough to know what that is, to know that that's bad, even if I'm trying to educate, they see it as an insult because someone's saying, oh, this person's hurting someone while they're down and on the ground and they're doing a bad thing. I'm going to use that as an insult in the future. They're learning that behavior. And I don't want to foster that. I don't want to be a part of that. And so Wolfenstein 2 is just one of those games that, like, I will play because I like Wolfenstein. I grew up playing Wolfenstein. But I can't have that. There are people that could really, really end up hurt hearing that stuff, or they might mimic it. I can't allow it. I won't allow it.
I see. So when the content is a bit too sensitive like that, maybe you won't stream it then. Okay, I see.
Pretty much. I mean, I think that as an example, on the counterpoint, The Witcher, I don't know if you've played The Witcher, but The Witcher handled it extremely well. We talked about it the other day on the stream, and I've played The Witcher on stream. The Witcher 3 goes to the point to say that, you know, you have elves who are hunted and killed just because they're elves. And so that's a racially motivated crime. but they handle it in a fashion in a fantasy world to where they can still talk about an issue, still talk about the narrative of the issue, push the direction that the individual or the player has technically a choice over it, but that may or may not make that the right decision. And so I think it offers an opportunity for people to be educational and offer a learning experience as to why that is good or why that is bad, why they're making that decision, and still have a fun time being able to play a game without direct correlation to the real world.
Okay.
But an indirect correlation as an opportunity and an incentive to teach and educate others.
Nice. Yeah, it's true that The Witcher does that really well.
Yes.
Basically just like passing, like social messages through like the fact that it's a fantasy world and all that. Yeah,
and people just don't even realize half the time, like, how much is actually going on the back end, unless they really step back and take a peek at that and go, wow, that's the real world mirrored into a video game. And right now I'm living it. I'm making choices that affect people's lives.
And so let's assume now that one of the things as I mentioned that sets your channel apart from other channels is that you really do play a huge variety of games. So I think like this week you played you were playing this game this afternoon, and you played also Apex and God of War. So is it most streamers actually usually focus on one specific game and attract viewers who love the same game, and they basically build like their community around it. But you chose to focus on a variety of games. So why did you do this?
The people. So it's a challenge. Sorry, and it's kind of a touching subject. It's a challenge because at the end of the day, you know that as a variety streamer, people are willing to show up for you no matter what game you're playing. And as stated, there have been plenty of times where, when I used to play PUBG more, when I used to play Apex more, when I used to play this, that, or the other, whatever, and I would only play 3 or 4 games, I would still end up playing variety, but, as a streamer, it's a fine line that you have to walk. If you play one title, people know what to expect. They know what they're going to come back to. They know what they're going to get when they come back into the stream. And so the idea is that I can get people to come back consistently because they have that bond. They know the experience. And it's the same thing like what I was talking about with God of War. People know what they're going to get if they've watched me play God of War. They know what they're going to get if they come back. So playing one game isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it greatly limits the individual's growth on relationship foundation more than the growth based off of a game. You see explosive results, in my opinion, as long as you have all the other ducks in line, to use an illusion, all the other ducks in a row to match up to get you that exposure, to get you that success and build you that success, because you're creating just a static norm. Like, people are coming back for Fortnite. It's the same thing with Ninja. And he said himself, quotably, if you change your game, plan on losing 80% of your audience base just for changing a game. So I'm playing Fortnite to 1 million users, and I can expect that the moment I swap off of Fortnite, I'm going to drop down to 200,000.
Oh, okay.
Which is shocking, especially when you're talking about monetary growth, fiscal stability. Like, there are a lot of issues that, as a creator, if that's your livelihood, that's a huge risk, massive. And so if I can stream as a variety streamer to just chat, to play a game, to play whatever the hell I want, and I know that people will still show up. I know that people are there for me. I know that people are there for the other people in the community. I know that they're there for each other, not the game, for each other. Okay. And that is something that I can always rely on.
Did you think then that the fact that people are here for you and for each other means like you have a more solid community, maybe?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was essentially just getting at, is that I know that I can rely on that fact, because that just doesn't change. Yes, you might have some people who something happens in their life and they'll flex one way or another, to a positive, to a negative, to a specific political standpoint due to an experience, whatever. But no matter what, like, I know, let's say, for example, my best friend, I know what I'm going to get out of him. I know what he's going to say. I know the negative things he's going to say. I know the positive things he's going to say. I know he's going to interact in X fashion if Y happens on the stream. It's an expectation that I've grown to understand, and I can expect it. I mean, I know him. I know who he is. But I think it's the exact same thing for user to user, community member to community member, because they know how a person's going to respond, and they can use it to play a joke. They can use it to, interact and have fun. Be there for someone when they're hurting or whatever. And so I think variety offers the platform, the haven for individuals of the community, members of the community, to be okay with, we're not here for whatever's on the screen, we're here for each other.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I see. So let's since we play such a huge variety of games, but do you have like a specific process when it comes to choosing a game that you're going to stream? So let's assume, for instance, that I don't know, like tomorrow you want to stream like a new game that you've never tried before. What are you going to look at when it comes, like when you actually select a new game to stream?
I mean, one of the things that I would be concerned about is this an 18 plus rated game, a mature rated game? What sort of issues am I going to be running into? Is there a possibility that my content that I'm going to see is going to be extremely vile, cruel, hateful, whatever? Right? Like, is this a growing concern? And I think, I mean, as an example, I just brought it up the other day. I was playing Outlast 2 once on stream, and I used to run what I like to call Freaky Fridays, where I would pick a random horror title and play through it with the lights off. And so I have interactive lighting. So I don't know if you've messed with that at all, but basically an individual can turn a light, which is directly in front of me, on a strobe. So it literally on and off flashing white light. And so if a user or an individual community member has already played the title and they know where, let's say, for example, a jump scare would be, they can be prepared and hover over that button and then wait for that occurrence to happen. So Outlast, getting into it, it was a great way for a user to engage and to be, again, bonded with me because they're trying to elicit a response. They're waiting for a response. And I know on the back end, they're going to continue to watch because they know when those moments are. So, you're building that time, you're offering up that time, that potential that maybe, just maybe, we'll see someone come into the stream who might not be there because they're there for the community, who might not be there. They're a new user, they're a new viewer, and they'll stay just so they can screw around with me after seeing that. But then it gives me the opportunity to say that, hey, we are more than just the game and you should stay. And every once in a while we keep someone. And that's part of time. That's part of the process. And some people are better at it than others. Like, I'm not a big streamer. I'm not a huge streamer. I wouldn't say I'm as vastly successful as other people out there. But regardless, I know that we have something different. But getting into the Freaky Friday thing, sorry, I digress. Getting back into the Freaky Friday thing, we played Outlast, and at the end of Outlast 2, there's a pretty horrific scene, and I was discussing it with someone the other day that it's definitely not stream appropriate. Like, by TOS, by service, by terms of what we should stream and what we should show, there are parts of that game that are and should be blocked out. And I think in the future, we need to see more potential for video game developers to enable like a stream friendly mode that everything is all going to be accurate, but except for this one little thing, it's going to be blurred out, or it's going to be blurted out, or, hazed over or whatever, so that way technically it's stream appropriate and we can still allow for an individual to play a game and showcase our content, our product, our design. So it was one of those games that I got into, and I ended up scene swapping, like literally changing the scene to get it off of the screen because I didn't want that to be up there. Again, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for a lot of people, and I don't want to showcase that.
I see. And are there maybe any games that you play off camera? So games that you play but without streaming them?
Yeah, like Wolfenstein as an example. Okay. There are games like I actually end up playing Apex more often off stream than I do on stream, and there's a couple reasons. I've noticed personally, and it just wasn't the case the other day. I had a very, very successful day on the analytical side. me playing Apex. It was surprising. Most of the time when I play a game like Apex, I'm still just as engaged. I'm the exact same person on Apex as I am as any other game. But for whatever reason, I can't seem to retain my audience base. And I don't know if it's because it's harder to get everyone involved. Like Paladins has upwards of 5 people that can play, 10 if we play non-casual mode or like, sandbox style. But Apex, you can only have 3, including myself. So I can only pull a potential of 2 people from the audience to play along with us. And sometimes that means me telling a person no, which a lot of times can literally separate you from a person who may actually stay around and come back.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is about Apex. It normally does not work. Apex is normally a game that I play off of stream because I'm just aware that it's not a very functional title for my community.
I see. Because it doesn't allow to.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. There are probably other factors that I'm just not aware of, at the moment that, people don't bring up. They don't talk about whatever it is. And I'm sure that happens on the back end, like, mentally, psychologically, a viewer is thinking X, like, oh yeah, this is just really boring, or I hate Apex, or, whatever it is that creates it to where no one just wants to watch. No one wants to be there. But there are games that I play. I notice like no one wants to stay for this. No one wants to be here for this. I don't necessarily want to play it on stream because everyone's telling me on or off stream that this just isn't as fun and they don't feel like they can talk with people. They're too distracted. They're too focused, whatever it is, that they don't feel like it's a very engaging experience and they just didn't enjoy it. So I lean on other people to hold me accountable to say that this isn't working for us. And so we should try something different. But I also allow for game suggestions through my personal Discord.
I see. And do you see like what types of games usually succeed more, and what types of games usually like fail to engage the audience?
That's a crazy question. Because you'll see it literally fade from platform to platform. I mean, if I pull up some websites, like right now, the top 5 categories on Mixer are Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Fortnite, Apex Legends, IRL streams, and Paladins. And if I go to Twitch, it might be League of Legends, Modern Warfare, Fortnite, and who knows what else. If I go to D Live, it might be IRL, GTA, PUBG Mobile. Who knows? So a platform's community, in a way, decides what games are going to succeed. And it's shocking because you'll see some games that just blow up far more. I mean, there's 1,700 people watching Forza Horizon 4 right now. I don't know what makes such an experience, but it does. So I don't know. Who knows? Like, it could literally be one thing to another thing, and I don't know what creates that, what drives that, motivates that, what helps individuals think that that's 100%, hey, this is what we need to do, but it does. And it's just hard to decide. It's hard to predict, and that's where some of the aspects of adaptation come in as a streamer, to recognize potential, to recognize failure, to recognize opportunity, and do something about it. But I mean, I don't think there's any one particular game that necessarily draws an audience anymore. Now, there can be based off of time. So the only thing that I definitely have noticed is that during the day, more people are interested in high energy games, and during the night, more people are interested in low energy or variety driven games.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Do you have yourself like a favorite game that you absolutely love to stream? And what do you like about this game if you have one?
Not particularly that I absolutely love to stream. That's like an end all be all, like, oh my gosh, this is just great. Paladins is definitely up there, and it's because I can allow for so many users to engage with me. I can get so many of the users involved out there, but it's not any one particular thing that sets that game apart from every other game. Besides the community piece. I mean, the more individuals that I can get involved, typically the better I can engage. The more that I engage, the better I do, because it's just a talent of mine, I would say. And I don't even know if it's a great talent. It's just, it seems to be working, and I'm going to go bank off that. But other than that, I wouldn't say that I have any one particular game that I just absolutely love streaming. I love playing Apex, but it's not a good stream game because people just don't enjoy themselves. And so, I mean, my community, my people that are in my community, my relationships with them are more important than my own personal interests, because the good of the many outweigh the good of one, in my opinion.
I see. And well, so you mentioned that you don't have like a favorite game to stream, but if you could maybe like get creative and imagine like an ideal game that you would love to be able to stream, like a hypothetical ideal game. So what would it look like? What features would it have? And what would it allow you to do?
Interesting. I think that definitely the more multiplayer potential that an individual can get involved with creates a better experience. Very, very balanced play. Just skill-based behaviors are always most important for me. I went to school actually for video game design. And I originally got into the notion that, you know, there should always be proper balance between luck and skill. And some games are, you know, luck based. You know, you could be playing, let's say, for example, Diablo, and some of the loot drops can be highly beneficial, but you can still use the skills of you as a player to create the damage, the sustainability, the evasion that you need in order to stay alive, regardless of the loot drop. Whereas some people just get lucky and that's their powerhouse, but they're still not that great of a player. And so someone else might still outshine them because of their skill level versus their luck level. And so I think that's what makes a game like Diablo so great, is that there is still a balance. But I think in a multiplayer aspect and in a competitive fashion, it should be mostly skill-based. There should be nothing luck involved. I think, and you see some games that handle that fairly well. I mean, there are some fashions, like, you know, for example, Paladins, that's mostly a skill-driven game. There's very little luck involved in that game when you're talking about how it impacts player-to-player competitive play. I think, I guess, looking for another great game that would allow me to be able to stream just something wonderful is maybe more integration to a streamer in general, like tie-ins to Twitch, tie-ins to Mixer, tie-ins to, you know, whatever, pick a platform, and a relationship with those companies to create a branded experience. It seems to work really, really well on some platforms and not on others. And I don't know the marketing behind that. I won't ever claim to. But it seems to keep people loyal. Like the incentive for skins or whatever seem to definitely keep people loyal. So I would say that would be important for a stream-based game, is incentives to keep people coming back and watching, because that's just going to drive people back to the company. That's going to drive awareness around the product. It's going to drive, you know, the three guys who are playing to get their other buddy or female friend, whatever, to play along because they need a fourth. You know, that drives sales. Like, there are a lot of aspects to that on the marketing and the business side that are directly beneficial and have a correlation with the viewership as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there are a lot of factors, but that's a very, very complex question, I think.
Okay. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I just wanted like your top of mind thoughts about this, but but you did it really well. So actually, yeah, we're already above 1 hour, so maybe I'll move on to the next question. Except if you have to go, please tell me. But
not a problem.
Yeah, I just have like one last section. So I didn't tell you originally what it was about, but it's about cloud gaming. So do you know what cloud gaming is?
I actually use the Xbox Game Pass streaming service to play the Xbox games on my phone. Obviously, Stadia has a pretty large hand in that. PlayStation has PlayStation Now. And of the platforms, Xbox seems to be the most productive. I believe they just tipped 8 million subscribers concurrently. So I'm familiar with cloud gaming. I wouldn't say maybe like the dynamics of development of cloud gaming, if that's part of the question.
Yeah. Well, so mostly, like, I wanted to ask you after that, like, do you know? You're probably aware of like the possibilities that cloud gaming will open for streamers, right? In
Yes.
terms of, especially in terms of like interactions. So, you'll be able to, like, through features like crowd play, for instance, with Google Stadia, you'll be able to, instantly invite like huge numbers of viewers to join you in game, for instance.
Right.
Or you'll have also like cross-play possibilities, basically, like, and also new ways to engage viewers by allowing them to have like a direct impact on what's happening on screen. So through cloud gaming features, you could, I don't know, like maybe post like a poll or something like that in the chat, and then people will be able to vote for the next weapon that you're going to use next round, for instance, stuff like that.
Yep.
So
Well,
basically, lots of like engagement possibilities. But since you actually use this, why do you use it actually?
I use it for the portability aspect, that it doesn't matter what device you're on, it doesn't matter where you are, you can still engage. And I think that's quite honestly a large portion of the potential in the future, as you've already stated, that you can interact with an individual, like what I kind of tied back to beginning. It's an interesting lead in, but I've tied it back to the beginning, that essentially you have an opportunity where, someone's not having a great day. They know that through hypothetically a game, they can just get a little bit of an escape to take some time out of their day, play along with me, my community, whomever, find someone to play with in my community if I'm not online streaming, and then use that as an opportunity to just say, like, you know what, I've got my 5 minutes of sanity and peace. I can go back to doing what I need to do. I know, the rest of the day is going to be really, really hard on me, but I can focus on it now. I feel like I've got a little bit out of my system. And so I definitely think that there's a potential there. I could even foresee, let's say hypothetically, just coming up with an idea off the top of my head. I know VR is starting to get into it as well. So with the potential of VR, you could have almost like a virtual stage. The streamers sitting there in, a virtual aspect, a virtual model, and they're at the front and center, and you have like out almost like an auditorium style seats, like an auditorium, and each one of those seats would be taken up by, let's say, like a profile picture or an avatar that they've created, and you can see when they're talking, like, a little speaker pops up above their heads, so when people are interacting, you could point at them and say, okay, now you had a question, and it would mute everyone else, that kind of a thing. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of potential for a lobby to be set up that way, especially from the streaming side of things, that you could literally control that to offer the streamer the capabilities to keep things safe, but also the stream or the community itself an opportunity to still engage with each other, because they could sit there and turn towards each other and talk, have a conversation without interacting or messing up, just like you would if you're trying to, like, say something in a whisper, to someone while you're, watching your teacher say something. You're like, oh yeah, no, that's what I found for that math problem, blah, 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 blah. And this is how I solved it. And the teacher's still going on with their lecture. So the concept's the same, but I think that there are a lot of opportunities for cloud gaming, VR, everything, the way the whole future of the gaming industry is headed, to create an experience for drop-in games, drop-in community, drop-in everything, to really bring a sense of camaraderie, friendship, relationship from one person to another, and really make it feel tangible, real, obtainable, right front and center, like it's actually happening. I know who this person is. I know what they would say if I said this in front of them right now, because I've spent enough time with them. I've built that relationship up. I have the foundation to know what they're going to say next, to know what they're going to do next. And so I think cloud gaming is definitely a way of the future. It's going to be very, very dependent on throughput of traffic, what our technology looks like in remote areas. It's going to be dependent on the type of devices that we're seeing, what the power is, virtualization of hardware. I mean, there's so many aspects of that really, really play into the success of the industry that I think make or break that entire thing. And if we do it too early, then you stand to gain, and then no one wants to buy in later without it being like, no, I promise I fixed everything. And so I think it's a challenge. It'll be really, really good timing that I think will make or break that entire revolution of gaming.
I see. So yeah, I mean, you talked about the power, like the throughput and all that, and it's a technology that still has quite a lot of barriers to adoption, I guess, especially because maybe the infrastructure is not here yet here. But what would be some barriers, other like barriers to adoptions that you could see for this technology? Like, what could prevent people from adopting cloud gaming?
Well, I definitely think that connection quality is your first and foremost issue. Quality of connection is your major concern. You have people that live out in, remote areas, rural areas that have a lower quality of connection and that are going to feel left out. Yeah, you have like city hubs, and that's going to drive most of your starting principle. The people with high-end connections that have the money, that have whatever, that continue to say that it's a necessity. And then by nature, the mass population says, no, we need this because it's so desired, so driven, so sought after that we have to have it. And we demand it from our internet service provider. We demand it from X company because that is the only option. I want to have fun too, And so I think connection's the biggest hurdle to get past, to make it a seamless experience, to make it feel real. Because when people are dropping connection, I mean, and you see it from even, let's say, Mixer. I've watched people who are partnered with 300 people, viewer averages, that leave Mixer to go to Twitch because they can rely on their connection to be stable. And here on Mixer, they might not have that. And it might be personal. It doesn't matter. But it might be that their individual location, where they are, and let's say, just again, broad example, North Dakota or, rural Russia or, something. They don't have that. They don't have the quality that they need in order to be successful. And so it's not necessarily their fault, but it is something that they do have control over. They might not have the capability to make a big change over it. Like they might not have the funding or the power or the money or, whatever to make that difference, to really set or change their direction, just because they're not in that place in their life. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. We should still accept them. They probably might even still make great content. I don't know. Like, that's all person to person, individual to individual, case to case. But they've left. We've watched people leave. So quality of connection is definitely first and foremost.
I see. And would you see maybe, because especially through features like crowd play, for instance, in the future, some games will probably be developed that will allow, like, streamers to play with potentially hundreds of their viewers at the same time. So would there be like some challenges that you could see with that, with the fact that you'll be able to play with lots and lots of your viewers? And actually, go ahead.
No. You can keep on describing. I want to actually look up something because I remember a case on this.
Oh, okay. And also my other question, but I'll let you look up what you have to, is like, what kind of games would you like to see being developed on cloud gaming?
5 years ago, so 2014. Okay, so I think cloud gaming is definitely at a point of challenge, or a point of, I would say, growth period, or an opportunity for growth and success. And one of the biggest challenges that you would end up facing would definitely be the masses coming together to try and achieve a common goal. And so when you brought that up, you said, like, what can we foresee? Well, we've already foreseen it. We've already seen it. There was I couldn't remember the time period when it actually happened, so I wanted to double check on it. But there was a thing called Twitch Plays, and it's still kind of active. I don't know if you've ever interacted with it or seen it, but it was essentially a huge crowdsourced gaming platform, and they would put up games like Pokemon or Mario or Metroid or whatever. And the issue that you would have is that you'd have a bunch of trolls, and so like someone would be posting "go up" and other people would be posting "go down," and you'd have a person just stuck. And so you'd have to have all these people who actually wanted to band together, to work together, to fight together, to make the battles work, to make the direction work, to make where a person was supposed to go 100% accurate. You know, you'd have a bunch of people just running dudes into walls so that way they could just be a jerk. And that happened in 2014 is when Twitch Plays first started doing it. And I believe they beat the game in 2015.
Yeah.
So like, they've gone on to beat multiple other games together as a community together. But essentially, when you think about it, that's the social experiment, is how can you have a bunch of people who are willing to work together to work towards a common goal of success? Then sometimes the people working together towards the common goal of failure, because they want to see that. And it goes back to the point that I made, that sometimes you just have people divided in, I want to see success and I want to see negativity. I want to see failure. And I think that that's one of your largest challenges, is how do we control without making it feel like we're segregating the community, segregating an individual, or being harmful, being depressive or oppressive towards one person's ideal or motive. How do we segregate that to say, no, these inputs aren't allowed? And so Mixer actually did something with Mixplay where you could do controller takeover. So I've done it before, where I did Sea of Thieves, and a person could just literally, I could sit there and hold my controller, and on the game, I'd be moving back or forward or whatever, and I wouldn't be doing anything on the actual input itself. People would sink my boat. They'd throw my stuff overboard. They'd have their friends come in and pick up all my stuff and just make me stand there against the wall, like looking and staring at it, and then have their friends kill me. It happens all the time. So I think that would be a challenge to try and overcome, is how do we make it to where a person doesn't feel like they're removed from being able to take part in that adventure, from that enjoyment, but also allow for people to not feel as stressed or unmotivated because they're trying to work and help an individual instead of hurt an individual. So it's such a tightrope of balance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because when you create games where, you know, let's say a game where, I don't know, like 200 viewers are able to play with the streamer, of course, these 200 viewers are going to be able to impact like the quality of the stream and, you know, how the game goes. And it also opens like opportunities for trolls and toxic people to actually come in here and, you know, ruin the experience for everyone. So, do you have maybe any ideas? So it's just like a top of mind question. It's not actually in my guide, but any ideas on how companies could counter that? Like, what tools could you develop to, you know, manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, let's say, for example, we'll just say that there's a gun, right? And theoretically, there's a slot in a gun that would allow for an upgrade. And it could be an upgrade that's rather not very impactful or is impactful. So like, let's say, for example, you know, you got a bunch of trolls and they're like, no, screw him. We don't want him to have more skills, more access, more capability to kill monsters or whatever. So they give him a flashlight. And, you know, the good people, or the non-trolls, I guess we'll say, because that's, you know, implying that trolls are bad. So the trolls versus non-trolls. You have the non-trolls who are like, no, dude, give him a grenade launcher so that we can kill all the zombies, or, you know, whatever it is. So it just drops out of the sky. Like, a bunch of people interact, and the more votes that there are, one direction or another, it just ends up in a box in a spawn point. So like, as you're going from point to point, from objective to objective, you can stop and, hey, it's like a community box, almost like the community chest in Monopoly, right? You open up the community chest, boom, there's the item. So, hey, this is what all the people voted on. You have a teddy bear. You've now strapped a teddy bear to your gun. Good luck, have fun. So it'd be one thing that you can make, so you still have the gun, the user can still play the game, and it could rather be game breaking or game changing, but the user can still fight as per normal. They can still interact and try and play the game in the exact same way. You know, like, hey, here's a first aid pack. And oh my God, that was super helpful. You know, I was literally like a sliver away from dying. Thank you so much, community. You're awesome. You're fantastic. I love you to death. I can't believe how awesome this was and amazing this was. What a great time. Or they give you, you know, a candy bar, and like that only improves your health by 2%. Like, you know, whatever it may be. So it still allows the trolls to take part. And you could say, well, hey, we didn't have enough of the non-trolls out there to vote for me for a first aid pack, so I'm still going to fight. I'm still going to try and do this. But it's not game breaking. It's not destructive. It influences. It can impact, but not completely alter the state of the game. And I think that's where the division or the success would come in, at not only involving the audience, but make them feel attached to whatever the result would be.
I see. So it kind of depends on like how much power do you grant viewers, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. Like how much do you allow them to influence gameplay and stuff like that, basically?
And I mean, you don't want to necessarily make it exponential either. So like, let's say, for example, you've got a game and they set a value to how many viewers there are. It should just be based off of percentage. Like, let's say hypothetically that 100% of the market audience votes for it to be a health pack. Then it would be a large health pack. If 67% of the market audience votes for it to be a health pack and 33% of it votes for it to be the candy bar, whatever it is, then it's a medium-sized health pack or small or non-vital or, whatever it is. So that way there's still a direct correlation, a direct value to how it attributes to the character, how it attributes to the streamer, the creator, whatever. But that's directly impacted, and then the streamer or creator could comment on it. They could be like, you know what, we've got a lot of people out there, it looks like a lot of people want to help me out, I just want to say thanks, it's super great to have all you guys banding together and really making this come true and happen, and blah 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 blah, whatever they want to say or not say, it's their prerogative. But it gives the potential to engage with the community and to drive that back home. And again, this is just personal perspective because of how I interact with the community, but also create an engaging experience for the audience base.
Yeah, I see. Would you like maybe, because like now we're kind of talking about, the community like cooperating with you, but would you expect to see maybe games where the streamer fights his community, let's say like PvP games where it's like the streamer versus his community?
Yeah, like 1v100, that kind of a concept. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Again, it has to have fair and balance, because if you have 100 voices, just based off of sheer numbers, the chances of a streamer or a creator being able to outweigh those is slim, depending on the type of game that you're talking about. So in an example, if you've ever played Dead or Alive, you can have the multiplayer competitive is 4 of the zombie creatures, that are the powerhouse guys, the guys with special abilities, versus 4 humans. And so depending on the loadout and the timing of those powerhouse guys, you can actually do some really, really nasty work, and it ends up leaving you feeling completely underpowered as a human. However, based off of the luck of the spawn and where the location is, the enemy team could be just completely screwed. Everybody gets jumpers, and it's like, oh, okay, boom, you're dead. One shot with a shotgun, and I, as long as I can time it right, I can maintain control of the situation. But I think it's important to leave balance to the game, and that's where I think one of the harder things in development is like, what is fair? What is, and that's more of the psychological quandary, like what becomes a point where it's fair. So if a streamer is fighting against 100 ants, the ants might not feel like they're very powerful because, the streamer just steps on them, like in an ant versus human kind of a situation, you know what I mean? Yeah. So can the ants burn them? Like, if they manage to get a bite off, does it slow the streamer down while they're trying to make it back into their garage or their house or something like that, and they start out on the street? Like, what is, sorry, I'm just kind of spitballing ideas on game ideas, but like, what becomes fair? So I think that's the biggest challenge too, is how do you make it fair for the people to feel like they have a chance to win? How do you make it fair for the streamer to feel like they have a chance to win? And make it more based off of skill than it is necessarily luck. And that's where great game design really, really comes into question, is how do we make this phenomenal? How do we make this an experience, but also feel like a game, a true, fair and balanced game?
Nice. All right. Well, actually, we went way above 1 hour. Sorry about that. But you said like tons of super interesting things, so I didn't want to like stop you. So actually, I have like one last question, which is very open. It's simply like, do you have anything else that you think I forgot to ask you, or something you want to mention? that you think is important based on everything we said?
I'm excited to see whatever DBD's working on, whatever the studio behind that's working on, because they're obviously working on something.
I don't even know myself actually, because I'm not part of the studio. But yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll see for sure.
So, I guess I have to ask you then, how about did you determine that this was something that rather they needed, or did they approach you and say, hey, we saw that you were doing X and we'd love to hear what that is?
So yeah, basically I was like doing an internship at Behavior a while ago, and I knew that I had this research project to work on for my master's degree. So they were just like they just like gave me a topic to work on, and yeah, basically I made like the whole methodology behind. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna go and interview streamers, and we're gonna explore the concept of like streaming and cloud gaming and all that. So basically, I was already an intern, and they had like research needs, and then I kind of like chose what I wanted to work on essentially.
I think they got a plan. It sounds like, I mean, it sounds like they got a plan.
Yeah, to be honest, I have no idea myself, and
That's okay.
They wouldn't tell me because like I'm I'm not part of the studio, but yeah.
Even then, I mean, they probably wouldn't say anything anyways because of NDAs and everything. I've been there. I mean, I worked in the industry. I know what it's like. So it happens.
Yeah. Oh, just curious, what company did you work
actually.
for?
No, I worked for a independent development company. Shockingly enough, or not shockingly enough, we worked on a project at school. I went to school at Full Sail University, which is a game development company, or sorry, game development university. And they worked on a project on the side to help make a mod for The Witcher. And the contest is whoever came up with the best design, they would publish it into the game. So the like Enhanced Kings edition, we worked on a mod for throwing knives and some other equipment for projectiles that the game didn't have previously. And our code that I was a part of that team ended up getting implemented into the game. So
Okay.
it was more of a, I would call a contracted service. Because it was community driven, it was a contest. If you were chosen, then you were added to it. So I would say in an indirect fashion, I worked for a company that produced a product that ended up using or getting used in at the time, it was definitely not AAA, but now the studio's a AAA studio.
Okay.
For them. So.
Oh, okay, I see. Just curious, like if you can tell me what studio was it?
God, I don't. I think was it Red Flame? It might have been.
Okay. Red Flame.
I think it was Red Flame.
Okay. I don't know this studio. I know Red Barrels.
Red Flame.
Red Flame.
It's on the mod database actually still, released in 2008. Deception follows its own storylines outside of Strands of Destiny. I don't. Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah. It was just out of curiosity. Okay, perfect. Did you have any other questions for me? Or anything you want to add?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your time actually, and again, I apologize for going over an hour. I have to adjust for the next interviews, because for sure, like, I mean, you did have a lot of interesting things to say, so we went above it, but it really depends. Like sometimes the people I interview like don't talk that much, so yeah, I have to adapt every time. But yeah, I hope it wasn't too long.
No, I'm okay. I appreciate that you think I'm entertaining enough or vocal enough about subjects to at least give you something to work with.
Oh yeah. You gave me a lot of things to work with for sure. Like everything you said is going to be super useful for my study. That's for sure.
Wonderful.
And, I mean, if you want to get in touch again, and like I don't know, like if you have any other questions or about the research project or anything, yeah, you know where to contact me. I'm on Discord, so yeah, just if you need anything, just contact me again, and we can get in touch again.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time again. Feel free to contact me, as I said, and yeah, if you don't have anything else to say, I guess good luck for your streams, the next streams. I'll be watching for sure.
Thank you.
And yeah, just keep up the good work.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. You too.
And good luck with your paper.
Yeah, thanks. I'm
Not a
gonna
problem.
need it, but thanks. It's I have to give it back in like a month or something, so I still have time. Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's the deadline is coming, but it's fine. It's fine.
You got this.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day, and again, thanks. Thank you so much for your time.
You as well. Stay blessed.
Yep. See you.